The opinions expressed in this program are not those of CISA 7 or Time Warner Cable.
What's your tomorrow?
I'd like to call the board meeting to order. I want to note that all 7 board members are present. We're also joined at the table by President of Intercity Student Council, Priyanka Navani, and Michaela Rabideau, also an Intercity Student Council member who's from East. And I'm joined on my left by Dr. Langenfeld and also Board Secretary Sandy Heller. The first is our teaching and learning report. And I'd like to call on Katie to to lead that.
Thank you, Brenda. Are we doing an open forum or no?
Oh, God. I forgot.
That's okay.
First, I'd like to open it up to an open forum. I don't have any sheets in front of me, but if there's anyone who would like to speak before the board, you can come forward now. Hi.
Yeah, they're just saying hi. All right.
Just saying
good.
hi. All right. All right.
Let the
Seeing
minutes
none,
reflect, at least we invited them.
then we will move on to the teaching and learning
All right.
work session facilitated by Katie.
Thank you, Brenda. We actually have no discussion items scheduled. We have one action item. Recommendation that the bilingual second grade resources, $59,190.90 be approved. Any? Here they come.
You're drawing a crowd.
All right. Good evening.
I have the opportunity to introduce our presenters today, and they'll be presenting on the bilingual second grade resources. So joining us at the table today is Claudia Orr and Jen Tremblay. So they'll take over the presentation and answer all your questions as well.
Good evening. I'm Claudia Orr. I'm the Associate Director of Bilingual Programs. And with me at the table is Jennifer Tremblay, and she's our Bilingual Literacy Coordinator. And we're here this evening to seek board approval for our second grade bilingual resources, which you will learn more about from Jennifer Tremblay. I also want to include in the audience, we have Julie Seafelt, and she's our Director of ELL Programs.
Hi, Julie. Thank you.
All right, so the document you have before you is the request for approval for the bilingual second grade resources. And that aligns with 2 of the strategic directions that you see, set high standards and expectations, and expect best practices that lead to academic excellence and implement relevant and ongoing professional development that improves staff knowledge, collaboration, and effectiveness. So we come to you again now moving to second grade for the adoption of resources for second grade. And with the adoption of the Common Core State Standards in 2010, it is necessary for our resources to align with those more rigorous standards. And the last time that curriculum was adopted for bilingual second grade was in 2003, which is another reason why we are seeking approval of new resources. Since then, the bilingual education field has really transformed a lot. There have been a lot of changes, and so too have our programs. And with the curriculum resources, we see both higher quality, higher quantity than we did at that time. And then again, publishers are really trying to align all of their materials now with the Common Core State Standards. So the current reality is that our bilingual second grade teachers are instructing with the old curriculum materials. So we did bring a group of bilingual second grade teachers together and bilingual instructional coaches. We reviewed the adopted resources, we explored additional resources, and then that group made the recommendations that you see before you. In terms of professional learning, the budget will be impacted for optional follow-up hours. There was required training this August, and so again, it would be just optionally the follow-up hours for those teachers that are interested. And then you will see in Table A list all the resources that we are recommending, which are all texts for teacher and student use. There are no consumable materials here. And so you will see we are asking for a total of $59,190.90 for the adoption. If we add teachers, bilingual second grade teachers, that would cost $3,232.10. And that would be in a building where a bilingual program is already established. In a building where we would be starting a new program, it would cost $4,372.10 for a new teacher in that building.
Any questions or comments? Rhonda?
I'm just wondering, did we approve first grade last year?
Yes.
And is this how we did it 10 years ago? Was one grade at a time each year? Or I'm just curious as to why we're doing it one grade a year instead of more grades at a time, other than obviously I'm sure it has something to do with money, but.
I can only speak a little bit about what happened 10 years ago because I wasn't here at that time. I think that if I remember correctly, and Julie, maybe you can speak to it, I think it was K2 and then 3-5, but I'm not 100% sure. Based on what I've seen, that's what it looked like.
The plan is to expand our program 3-4-5 next year, and with the curriculum writing, we're able to write so much at a time. So next year we will be moving forward with 3-4-5.
Okay, so we'll get 3 through 5 next year.
Correct.
Sometime.
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely.
Thanks.
Just a clarification on that last one. This is for next school year?
The
What we have in front of us?
second grade is for this school year,
This school year?
2013, 2014.
Okay, then for next school year is a 3 through 5.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Follow-up question. In regard to the resources that you have identified and in alignment with the Common Core standards, my question is, are publishers or vendors changing rapidly right now? I mean, is it wise to wait to do 3, 4, 5? Do you know what I'm saying? I would hate to invest, this is a significant amount of money, and I would want to make sure that we had the best at the time, the best we could. And I'm just wondering what your sense is.
The coaches and teachers have looked real closely at the research and have aligned it with the Common Core, and right now these are the resources that are the best out there.
Okay.
And I don't see a big drastic change
Shift.
to next
Okay.
year. Yeah. And some of these resources are in some classrooms.
Already. Thank you.
Any other questions or concerns? Hearing, Mike?
No,
Jeff?
I'm
Okay.
good.
Hearing none, we'll move that forward to next week's board meeting. Thank you very much. We have no consent items. Are there any other matters allowed by law? Hearing none, that concludes our work session.
All right, thank you, Katie.
You're welcome.
Next, we'll move to the organizational support work session. That'll be facilitated by Chris Wagner.
Mrs. Marsh has an update for us in the personnel area.
Yes, I wanted to give you an update on the open positions. And interestingly enough, we have 54 open positions right now, the same number that we had last year. the mix of positions is slightly different, with 5 classroom teachers last year and 8 classroom teachers this year. We have the usual noon hour supervisors, monitors, food service, clerical, paras, maintenance, and 1 avid tutor. We have 9 noon hour supervisors, 3 monitor, security, student support assistants, that's 1 group, 9 food service, 7 clerical, 7 paraprofessionals, 9 maintenance, and the 1 avid tutor coordinator person resigned within the last week, and so that just got posted. So it's comparable to last year. And we have, in the classrooms, we have subs right now filling vacancies, and I do anticipate having these vacancies filled.
Katie? Or, well,
Chris.
We switched already.
You switched so
We
fast,
did.
you lost track.
Jean, when will we be posting the Preble AP position?
That's been posted, actually. We
Okay.
anticipated, we wanted to get moving on that. It was posted, and actually the posting closed. So I just received an email from Tina with the number and names of the internal applicants that we have.
Okay.
That was sent to Natasha.
Okay, good, thank you.
Any other questions? You may have said it before, I didn't catch it. Is somebody filling in there, were we able to find somebody for Preble in the interim?
We probably won't need that, because the transition of Jim Van Abel to Lombardi, and then Ann to the Educator Effectiveness Coordinator position is going to happen when Ann feels that she's established, Lombardi after the opening of school, and they'll be working with Terry and Mark to make that transition down the line. So we aren't going to make it happen right away.
Thank you. Okay, so much for discussion items under human resources. We'll go back to business. Alan has several things for us. I'm going to turn it over to Alan.
The first item that we have is determining what the 2013-14 budget meeting dates, and setting those dates so we can prepare for the presentation of the budget that we are currently working on. There are 2 options there, and I handed that out to you. Do you want me to go through the options, or?
Well, you'd like the decision tonight, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So maybe everybody quickly.
I mean, normally we've had 3 meetings. We've had the meeting to approve the budget, the board review and the approval of the budget. The second meeting has been then the engagement session, where we do a presentation of the budget to the public, and then the third meeting is the adoption of the budget. The public hearing, and the adoption of the budget is the third meeting. And normally we've done that during the last board meeting, where we've started the board meeting, and then we at 6:30 then went to the budget hearing and adopted the budget, and then went back to the regular meeting. The first option would have on October 7th the budget review and approval of the budget from 3 to 5 p.m. And then we have the 5:30 board meeting work sessions after that. October 14th would be the public engagement session. First, we would have the superintendent retreat, the board superintendent retreat from 4:30 to 6:30, and the public engagement session at 6:30 p.m. The adoption of the budget, Monday, October 21st, we would, like we have, start the regular board meeting at the usual time, 5:30. At 6:30, we would intervene and have the public hearing and adoption of the budget, and then reconvene the regular board meeting if it was needed. Option 2, the approval of the budget on October 14th. First, there would be a board superintendent retreat to discuss the open enrollment policies from 4 to 6. At 6 o'clock, there would be the board review and the approval of the budget. For the engagement session, October 21st, we have a regular board meeting, and it starts at 5:30. We looked at 6:30 to move to the engagement session, and then reconvene the board meeting at when the engagement session would be completed.
And then on Monday, October 28th, the public hearing and the approval of the budget at 5:30. And that would be a special meeting because the board, it's not a Monday that has a board meeting on it.
I guess I'd like a little discussion here on what we have planned for the engagement session. For our public hearing, we always announce a public hearing. We have 2 or 3 people show up, with a $240 or $250 million budget. For the engagement session, and maybe we have some plans along the line, but I would like to see us, rather than just announce that we're having it and hope that somebody shows up, I'd like us to be a little more proactive and send out formal invitations to different school and community groups. Come in and talk to us about your schools, what's important to you in the budget, and then what we're doing in our schools, concerns, things you like, things you'd like to maybe see us add or whatever. But I hate to have it just sit back and hope that people show up, because that seems like what we do every year. I'd really like us to be proactive in reaching out to different school and community groups and say, come on in and talk to us about your school district.
If I could just piggyback on that, but then if we're truly inviting public input and want to take it into consideration, does the 1 week give us enough time
To do something?
do that? And do we want to
Should we do that on the
encourage public
7th?
engagement first and then do the board review and approval?
Maybe we should
and then,
flip those, the 7th
Guys, I'm
and the
just thinking,
14th.
because a week really isn't a whole lot of time to give any consideration to things that
Good
have been
suggestion. Yeah, I
suggested
think
by the
that's a good
public.
idea.
Yeah, another option, just to throw it out, because technically our board retreat was scheduled for 6, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yes, on the 14th.
And that was we specifically had a conversation about starting it at 6 and no earlier. And I'm wondering if we could potentially, we have the 28th that's potentially open for a meeting.
Mhm.
We could potentially move that board superintendent retreat to the 28th. Or we also have the 23rd, a board retreat, that if the open enrollment policies, if the topics at that 14th were ready by the 23rd, we could move our board retreat, where we were going to talk about the board agenda on the 23rd, we could move that to the 28th. Because I know we had a lot of trouble scheduling the retreats we did and the times we did, and I don't think we have, we're not going to have all 7 board members there. I know it if we expand the date on the 14th especially.
So
So I don't know what's doable or possible.
What would happen if we did the public engagement session on the 7th?
7th.
Taking a couple of weeks to take that into account, then on the 21st, do the board review and approval, and then on the 28th, vote on it, the public hearing and vote. And just.
Except then, would you add that to the work session meetings on the 7th? See, I was thinking of having,
Yeah.
I was thinking we could have, I don't know.
Well, you could start the
Maybe
7th
3 meetings.
with the public engagement, then go into our work session after that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I'd almost be inclined to, the public engagement, inviting public engagement from 3 to 5 isn't very public friendly for people
People are
who work.
working.
Yeah, and that wasn't intended to be public
Right, no,
Yeah.
I understand that.
But Mike just said start at
If we
5:30
start
with
the public engagement at 5:30
Yeah.
and then
Right.
post it that the work sessions begin immediately
Yeah.
following.
Can
then
we do
could
that,
get
Sandy?
done.
Right.
That's okay, Sandy?
And we'd
So-
have the
How
2
does that
weeks.
fit on your end with your plans and timeline?
Either way, the budget would be done by whatever the first date is.
Right.
As far as the budget document itself.
The-
Now, at the public engagement session, I think we normally have done a budget presentation, the PowerPoint.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I mean, that's
that's what we provided as,
Right.
as the information.
Is the,
Right.
just a point of clarification. If the intent is to respond to the budget, per se, then we're going to need the budget presentation first.
Correct.
Okay? If the intent is to gather information from our community like we did in those 5 sessions last year, that's a different purpose. And then that drills down to individuals. So I think that maybe I'm
Well,
off a bit.
I guess my thought is traditionally, your public hearing, Alan does a presentation, you make some comments, Brenda makes some comments, and then people react to the budget. My thought for the public engagement is probably a little bit broader than that, and engaging our school and general community in not necessarily changing something in the budget, but come on in and talk to us about your school district. You know, broader than just a public hearing on the budget. And be more proactive in inviting people rather than sitting back and waiting for them and hoping that they show up.
And most.
Because most of the time they don't.
But then that had been done earlier.
Well, I mean, we did 5 or 6 of those earlier this year, but it wouldn't, it's not a bad idea to do it right at the start of school when people are energized about the start of school, and school is more on their mind. I mean, that's my thought.
Well, I guess my question is, before the public, does the board want to have, do their review of the budget before we would have the public? And I mean, that's why it was always
Exactly.
second. The budget
Yeah.
hearing certainly
Right.
was
Right.
always, it was not intended to necessarily be,
A public,
which is why we
Yeah,
created
okay.
the engagement session.
Yeah.
because
Because the first meeting, normally, we would, spend 2 hours, whatever time with the board, asking questions about the budget and approving the budget, knowing that, again, as we know, the third Friday count, the
Yep.
aid isn't known till October, there are things, and that's why you have to adopt it, because there are gonna be some changes that.
And we didn't do the engagement session last year, we just did the public
No, we
hearing.
did the
correct?
engagement
Did
session
we?
last year.
But not very many people showed up.
No. And I
That's
think
the
we
problem.
invited people last year.
I think we invited
Did we?
people too.
We had the approval of the
Trying to get
budget was on October 1st, the engagement session was October 8th. And October 22nd was the adoption, the budget hearing and the adoption.
Is everyone available for a meeting on the 28th? We should throw that out first.
No.
Okay.
The last Monday of every month is police advisory
Oh,
this year.
okay.
So I'm never available on the last Monday.
For the whole, till late? Okay.
And you were proposing that we do the 7th, Katie, and the 21st, and not the 14th?
Except we need 3 dates.
We need 3
We
dates.
need 3 dates.
Yeah.
So that,
Well, I think, I think whatever dates you put in there, I'll have to figure out.
and I think
Football.
because you're right, Alan, that the budget does come to us and then we react to it. And then we do present it in the public engagement session and public reacts to it. And that maybe, Chris, your point is well taken, that for public input, we need to include that sooner in the process rather than right before we're going to.
Well, if you've already had
get
those
adopted.
5 sessions, it sure seems to me like that's a start towards that, yeah.
Right. And
Yeah,
that
but we
may
didn't
be-
really talk about money.
some did.
Oh, we always
Some-
talk about money.
Some
But it
people
wasn't, but
did.
I think that when you
Not
talk.
focused around.
Right,
Right.
because
Yeah.
budget and why we, our formulas and
Mhm.
why we do things and how money gets spent is, money always does come up, but it wasn't really a major topic of conversation. And, there are some communities that are doing budgeting, like in Chicago, there's a process where there's actually some more town hall style meetings within a school community, and they talk a little bit more about how money should be spent. And I think it certainly is worth considering so that we can have a fuller and more balanced idea about what people really think about the budget and what they don't understand.
And it might not be suggestions we get at the engagement session, might not be something that we're able to do in next year's budget, but it's certainly something that you consider as you start next year's budgeting process, because I think the day after we adopt the budget, Alan starts on next year's. So, I mean, it gives us some things to think about for coming years as well.
Sure. Okay, so we have in September, so it's the 7th, 14th, and 21st.
That would be option one that Mary, you would be able to attend.
When is the,
All of those?
I think we have those already on we've got those
Let me-
dates cleared on our
let me-
calendar already.
What is
But
the,
not the,
Not
but
the-
not 3 o'clock.
what is the first
3 o'clock.
3
retreat?
o'clock is out for me.
What is the first
September
retreat?
23rd, you mean?
Is that
Let's
too
go
soon
back
to
for a
do a
second.
public
Is
engagement?
everybody
Well, I
okay
don't-
with going with option one?
I can't come at 3 o'clock.
Is September 23rd too early for you to present the budget?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, but it wouldn't be too early to do an
But we're-
engagement
But
session.
we're talking about doing it,
Well, there wouldn't be a presentation of the budget.
there would be no budget
Correct.
presentation to
Engagement
engage
session.
Okay.
over.
Now I'm confused.
Because, yeah, we talked about having this.
So if you
has to
can't come
precede
at
the
3, we
public.
could go back to Mike's suggestion where we start at 5:30 and then do the work sessions after.
Except the board review and approval is a 2-hour process. So then you're talking about starting work
That's
session at
super-
7:30.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm
We
thinking
used
it
to
was
start at 7.
about that
Yeah.
time, 2 hours.
Well, let me,
Yeah,
let
we
me
used to
all right
start
with
at
that.
7 years ago.
I'm all right with that, but I just want to make sure everybody knows what we're signing up for.
That's a late night.
It's either an early day or a late night.
Right, so maybe, Andrew, can you come at 3?
It's not my preference, but I could.
Well, then
It's actually, you know what, I have a little bit different position, so that's less bad than it used to be, actually.
Well, then I'll make an effort to come at 3, because I would prefer not to be here late.
So you can make 3?
I'll make an effort to come at 3.
I teach till 5 every.
Oh,
I have another suggestion.
okay.
Throw it out.
This would mean that Mary couldn't come to the last budget approval meeting. But we could have, let's see. I lost it here.
Yeah, you could. Yes.
We could have the board
Mhm.
board review and approval of budget.
Mhm.
But if we push it to 5, I guess.
Mhm.
No,
And then do
let me
the-
think about this again. 'cause
Then
that-
were you thinking the vote on the 28th? And then doing a public engagement session as indicated on the 14th, giving a couple weeks in between? Is that what you were thinking?
Yeah, but I was thinking we could,
What are you talking about, though?
well, I was thinking we could do the public hearing and adoption of budget on the 28th.
Okay.
We could do the public engagement in response to, the budget. We could actually could we do both of those in the same day? The board review and approval of budget and the public engagement session right after that?
I mean,
I-
again, I think it gets back
Doesn't give
to,
anybody
are we gonna,
Ted-ted.
what are we going to do for the engagement session? Are we gonna,
Right.
again, just do
Right.
a quick presentation of the budget? I mean, I go through the budget, the budget, I would be doing it twice, but I mean, if that's,
Well, no, I was thinking of doing those both on the same day. The board review and approval of budget and the public engagement session.
Both on the
Both on the
14th.
14th. And moving the superintendent retreat to the 28th. After, and just have on the 28th, except you,
Mary's not going to be there on the
she's
7th.
not there on the 28th, never mind.
Mary, what time does your meeting start on the 28th?
I'm waiting to hear back from all the board members, but they are working people too. So
Okay.
it's not going to be an afternoon meeting, it's going to be a nighttime meeting.
I'm just thinking that in terms of for the approval, if you can come here before that meeting.
Well, I work till 5,
Okay.
so that's, Typically, other than the last Monday, I can always be here by 5:15.
Okay.
The last Mondays of every month are reserved for that
Okay.
board.
Okay.
I mean, there's certainly nothing that stops us from having both on the same, together, on the same day.
If the intent is to respond to the budget, there needs to be time to absorb the budget
Digest it, yeah.
and digest it and think about it and go back and look at numbers and, people like to do that. So my question would be, if you did it goes back to the vote. If you had an opportunity on the 21st to do the response after presenting on the 7th and then the vote on the 28th, that gives a couple weeks in between. I'm wondering if there's the possibility, if we're not necessarily taking a lot of public comment, I don't know when the board would be, if there's public comment in addition to the vote, I would assume there is, but I would expect that you would have heard from folks before that come the 28th, you would be in a good position, and I'm just wondering, not sure where the two board meetings are at, the one, Mary, you're on, I'm wondering, if Judy used to weigh in and she would do it by phone, and we'd put her on speakerphone. We've Skyped people in my previous existence too, so.
Yeah, the public hearing and the approval of the budget typically is about a 15-minute meeting.
Right.
Historically.
Right, I'm just talking about when do you afford people opportunity to digest and bring their questions forward.
And that's part of the reason why we created the engagement session, because the public hearing is right before we have to make the adoption of the budget.
But
It was going to move forward, so it could be before that.
Right, if you stuck to the 7th and moved it to the public engagement on the 21st.
So you're suggesting the 7th, the 21st, and the 28th?
The 28th would be the final meeting to actually vote.
Is a week in between the public engagement and the vote enough time?
Well, there's a week to digest.
Oh, no.
Well, I don't know which is more.
And present, and then there's a week to listen during public engagement, and sometimes when people go to the public engagement sessions, they consider other things that come to mind, and then that would be an opportunity. As board members, I'm assuming you're taking any kind of feedback from folks via emails or other areas too. I don't. That's.
Otherwise, with the 7th, you were suggesting the 7th, the 21st, and the 28th?
Yeah, that would give 2 weeks for people if they had thoughts. But you could.
I'm thinking 7th, 14th.
7th, 14th, and 28th is what I'm thinking.
Right.
Yeah.
We just want to give people enough
That
time
would
to
work.
digest
All
and
right,
give
so
the board feedback.
That would work.
If we stick with the 7th, the 14th, and the 28th, and the question is, we have, what time do we want to start that evening, because it's going to be a long one?
It's going
On
to
the
be a long
7th.
one. I think people need to be here.
If you say
Yeah, I
7th,
know, so that's
14th.
why
So
I'm
I'm
asking,
thinking,
3
why don't we go
o'clock isn't going to work,
5:15?
so.
Why don't we do 5:15?
the
And
7th?
on the 7th, and then start our work session immediately following. If people planning the work sessions could keep in mind that this is going to be, Kim is smiling and nodding, that if we can keep it a more reasonable, theoretically, we could be out of here by 6:30 tonight if we weren't scheduling all this stuff.
Yeah.
But if we can have a similar, agenda
And then you go back to 6
for
o'clock on
the
14th.
7th, I think we can make that work.
So
Be here at 5:15.
So
You can be here
engagement at
5:15.
5:15 is what you're saying.
Not the engagement, the board
The
review
board
and approval of the
review.
budget at 5:15.
Gotcha.
The work session will start immediately after. Then we'll have that week to digest what we've been given.
Okay.
And then on the 14th, we'll have the public
At 6
engagement
o'clock.
session at 6 or 6:30, however, because that's a good time for public who were
Well,
to
and
get
That's
here.
the night we already have. 6
Have.
o'clock
And we
on
have
the
that
6
7th.
o'clock.
We should keep.
We have that,
So we'll do
right.
6
So we know
o'clock.
people have
6
committed
o'clock,
to being
okay.
present
For
there.
public engagement.
14th
Okay.
at 6 o'clock.
And then the retreat immediately to follow?
Right.
Or do you want to
Right.
reschedule the retreat? Oh, no, we can't, never mind.
I
Let's leave the
think we
retreat
could
that
go
day.
to
We
the
can do
early
that.
one.
Yeah.
We can talk more about that.
Okay, and the
Because we
retreat
still
will
have the
follow.
And then on the 28th is the formal
Okay, good.
adoption, and Mary can weigh in on via phone.
What did we talk, what time, regular time, 5:30?
Make it a little earlier.
Budget adoption?
At 5:30,
Oh, you said
5:30.
5:30,
Right.
regular,
On which day?
28th.
But then the 21st, we still have a regular board meeting.
Right.
do.
But,
We
do.
but based on that, that would give folks the opportunity during open forum to come forward as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So you
there's-
really
there's
have
ample
two different
opportunity.
times to speak in
Right.
front of the board if you'd like to be public versus in private, have
Right.
Right.
email communications and whatnot,
So
so.
what time are you doing that on the 28th?
It's 5:30, okay?
5:30, yeah. What?
Yeah, that's all right. I need to,
5:15?
the 5:30's all right. Hopefully it'll be quick, because
I mean, that's the time
a
we're
lot
meeting rather than change it
for
for
me, unfortunately.
people.
We move our dates and times all over Kingdom Come. I don't know how anybody can follow it. If you're done, I'm going to ask Sandy just to
Yes.
repeat what she has here to make sure we're on the same page.
We done?
Are we done? I think
We
we're
are.
done.
Okay, so October 7th, we have the board review and approval of the budget at 5:15, with the work sessions immediately following.
Right.
Then October 14th, we'd have the public engagement at 6, with the board superintendent retreat to follow. October 21st, we have our regular board meeting at 5:30. October 28th, we'd have the public hearing and adoption at 5:30.
Can we go back to September? Yeah, because I just want
Back
to
to
open up a can of
September.
worms,
Can we
right?
wait, can we firm? are you-
Go ahead.
But we're good for October before
Yeah.
you throw September
Yeah,
into
but I need to
Oh,
make
wait,
sure.
it's closed. It's done. We're moving past October here.
back on the table.
We can
Yes,
go back in
October, yeah.
September if you want, but
October's done.
October's a done. deal.
Okay, so we have a board retreat on September 23rd
Yes,
At 7 o'clock.
at 7 o'clock.
yes.
Okay.
Is that all you needed to know?
I just am double checking.
All right. I thought you were opening a can of worms, so.
Well, I was hoping I wasn't,
Okay.
so there you go.
Yeah, we scheduled that with the hopes you could come after.
Yeah,
your
that's right.
football game.
Mhm.
So the 6th.
Yep, got it.
okay. Alan, you all set?
Okay.
Yes.
Took
Sure,
more than
great.
10 minutes.
Yeah, that was,
You.
yeah, who put 10 minutes?
Okay, the next thing Alan has for us is a deal you can't refuse. That's what he tells
Yeah, I
me.
don't know what I said that. Yeah, the second discussion item is the revenue limit exemption for energy conservation purposes. Within the state budget, there is this, has been in there now, I think for 4 years now, the energy exemption. If you remember right, there was going to be one for safety, one for nurses. You know, there were like 4, and this is the only one that's made it through over the last 4 years. We are wanting to utilize the revenue limit exemption for energy purposes, and what it is it allows us to increase the revenue limit by the amount of the energy projects. And because our debt service levy is decreasing this year, the referendum debt, we would have the ability to do the $5 million energy exemption and have the total tax levy remain flat. And it would really be like utilizing the $5 million that is being reduced in the referendum debt. And it's something that districts have been doing over the last 4 years. And what it really, it really affords us $5 million to do some energy projects. And again, with the tax levy flat. I've worked with Mike Clark on this. We did some work with some energy contractors. One of the stipulations of this is that we do need to have a performance contract. We need to have a third-party company that works with energy to come in and measure the amount of our energy savings. So that's something that is required to do the energy exemption. And I understand that from the state perspective, that they want somebody independent coming in there to verify that what you're using the exemption for is viable, and it's going to be energy saving. And what will happen with this is that there would be a resolution that would have to be approved by the board, sometime probably in October. It would be a resolution to exceed the revenue limit for energy exemption purposes. We've looked at a number of buildings that we're looking at. One of the buildings being this building right here, as far as ones that we may want to utilize for that $5 million. Mainly because this building has never made it to the front, and we have some dire needs in this building. And the other part of the energy exemption is that while we're approving this in October, we have until June 30th to spend the money, which isn't a great amount of time. Now, that part of that is looking at buildings where we can work during the non-summer, when most of our work gets done. And I'll talk a little bit later. These kind of things all kind of tie together. But if we were working on the projects and felt that we could not get them done by June 30th, we could do a borrowing that would give us until December 31st of 2014. I mean, there's a lot of different pieces that fit into that, and when we get to some of the action items, we'll be talking about the same exact thing here. But this is really just to give you an idea of what the revenue limit exemption is. It is something that I would like to utilize for this current budget.
Alan, in the projects that you select for this, is there an energy payback requirement?
There needs to be energy payback. There
Yeah.
is not a amount that it has to be.
Okay.
It could be windows, it could be HVAC, it could be removing furnaces, replacing furnaces, it could run the whole gamut of.
So it doesn't say in an X number of years you have to recoup what you've spent on, okay.
And the resolution itself is fairly specific to what exactly you are doing. You can go on the DPI webpage, and I printed off a whole bunch of resolutions that people have done over the last 4 years.
If we could get a list of the school projects that would be eligible for this kind of a thing, I guess I'd still prefer to see I know we have HVAC issues
Yeah.
in a couple of our middle schools in particular, that if there's any way these projects can go in that direction.
Well, and I think the issue again with that is we can't do the work while the school is in session. Maybe an issue unless we go, do the borrowing part of it to extend it to December 31st. We're also looking into the future, not down the road, to again take care of some of those bigger projects.
Am I right in saying that $5 million will come close to all the energy projects we have need for in the district?
No.
or
I mean, we have schools that are more than $5 million right now.
Right.
And that's why,
Those schools, yeah.
we're going to need to look at a different source to take care of the buildings that we need working.
So in terms
Like
of the
Washington
energy auditor
and-
coming in, will you have a listing of all the needs throughout the district for that person or firm or whatever to look at, or are you going to just
It would be based
have a
on which
specific
projects we select. I mean, and again, part of it, the concern is getting the work done by the time, in the limited time that's there. And this is not something that may happen the following year. It just, it's not it's kind of a year-by-year type of thing. I think to deal with the bigger projects we have out there, that, I think a referendum is really the way we're going to be able to take care of the schools that are at that $7, $8, $9 million range.
I think with the extended school years that we're looking at for our schools, and having been in several of the buildings during that very warm week, the end of August, I would say in one in particular, I know we were pushing 100. And if you imagine children in those schools as well, that's concerning. I know it's concerning today in some of our buildings because we're running into the 80s, but kids can tolerate that far better than 100. And The one
Right
was
now,
pretty
right now we're
miserable.
asking, we've done some contracting to get estimates of some of the larger projects that we
Okay.
need to have done in the district.
Good.
And we should have some of those within the next couple of weeks.
Yes.
Yes, I just wanted to throw out there that I just want to say for the record, any temperatures above 80 in an indoor environment wouldn't be tolerated,
In
in a workplace. I mean, unless there
I
was some
agree
kind of
with you.
outdoor physical workplace, and
I agree with
we've been going along for a long time like it's not okay. I mean, I guess I would want to see, even at risk of some disruption, I'd like to see those problems get taken care of, because that's been going on for a long time. I'm not saying we're going to have a perfect year-round 72 like you might have in an office building, but it should not be hitting 80, and it should not be hit, just like it should not be hitting 60 either.
I agree.
So this is a way to spend money to save money, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just out of curiosity, I didn't ask you ahead of time, so if you don't know, that's fine. We've had energy-saving projects in the past. How well have they come through on what was anticipated in terms
Well,
of savings?
I think just from the presentation that we had not too long ago, on where Green Bay is at, and I think as we talk to people, even talking to the consultants that we've talked to, I mean, Green Bay is a well-known name as far as energy savings. And again, I think presenting at the state convention in Milwaukee was a testament to
People
that.
were talking.
I mean, we have done a lot of energy projects, and as you may remember, we borrowed like $4.4 million of QZAP, QSCB, 0% to do energy projects, and we'll likely do those again in the near future.
Any other questions? Do you need anything right now in this discussion from us?
No.
Okay.
The next item is going to the action items. Mike, if you want to come up here.
I'll read the motion while he's coming up here. The motion is that the project development agreement with Nexus Solutions as presented be approved. Is that the one you were, have Mike up here for?
Yeah.
No, let's discuss it.
As we've talked to, we looked at the two energy consultants. I'll probably call it 3 different titles by the time we're done. And we did RFPs to the 2 companies, McKinstry and Nexus. They're 2 of the big players in Wisconsin as far as working with school districts to do the energy exemption. I mean, those are the companies that have been used by a number of districts. We did RFPs, and we met with both companies 2 different times and had presentations, questions and answers. We did a formal RFP, and based on and again, it was the entire facility team that works with the energy projects within our district, which we're fortunate to have, with Jeff Christians and the people who, small districts don't have those people on their payroll. And we chose Nexus to be the selected energy company to come in, and right now this would be the approval for the preliminary work to look at the buildings that we choose to start doing the preliminary work. There would be down the road, there would be another contract that would be the full contract with Nexus. But maybe Mike, you could talk a little bit about what the beginning of that's going to be.
Yeah, since we don't know what the scope of the projects will be yet, this would be a preliminary so that they would go through, review what we're looking at, give us suggestions, put budget numbers together, and their fee would be non-binding. So in other words, if we determine after we do this preliminary work that we do not want to proceed with them, we'd pay them, and then we would not be obligated to go further with them. If we determine that we're going to go to the next phase with them, this fee would be credited towards their fee for the entire project.
And again, all of this gets to that resolution in October to do the energy exemption, and also then, you know, have an approval of an energy consultant before it needs to be happening by the end of October.
Questions, concerns? Okay, we'll move that along. Next one, recommended motion is that the resolution authorizing the borrowing of not to exceed $9 million and providing for the issuance and sale of general obligation promissory notes, therefore, as presented, be approved.
In the past, when we did the energy projects that I've talked about, the $4 million, at that point in time, we had asked the board for $4 million, a resolution to authorize the borrowing of up to $4 million. And all that, what that meant that is we had that ability to do so, and when we did the energy projects, the QZAB and the QSCB, we borrowed, I think, $3.6 million of that $4 million. So the $4 million just gave the district the authority to do the borrowing. And the board has to approve any borrowing. So when we did borrow that $3.6 million, it came to the board to approve. It doesn't give us the ability to go out and do anything without the permission of the district, of course. The $9 million resolution that I'm bringing forward, after talking with Mike Clark at Baird, because we may have the ability, if we start the projects and we feel that we will not get them done by June, this would allow us to do a very short borrowing, which would then extend the time to do the projects to December 31st of 2014. We also are asking for this resolution to be approved because we will have another chance to have QZAB dollars at 0% interest to do other energy projects. So by having this, the resolution, it will give us the district the authority to borrow $9 million. And this is required because this is not referendum debt. We're not taking this to a referendum. This is debt that we would have to be paying back out of the general fund. And when we borrowed the money to do the energy projects, the intent was to pay off the money by using the energy savings over 10 years. And so this is the same resolution that you approved 4 years ago. The only difference is the amount is $9 million versus the $4 million. And if the authority lasts for 5 years, after 5 years we would have to do this all over again. And this way it gives us the ability, when the opportunity may show up, that we can, borrow dollars at 0%. We don't have to go through this process every time for $1 million or $2 million.
By that last statement, if you choose to borrow a little bit later, or as you said earlier, before any projects are done, it still has to come by the board?
Yes, any borrowing, anything legal will come to the board, so, yes.
And obviously this $9 million, since it comes out of the general fund, has, if the board authorizes the borrowing,
if it's used,
that we still have to find that money then in our general fund somewhere. Questions?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Move on to human resources. First recommendation is that the table of organization be modified to reflect the addition of 1.0 materials management / distribution manager, 12 months, salary group 12, which is $61K plus to $71K plus, and that the associate job description as presented be approved.
This is a new management position. It is an existing position that we're upgrading from a staff level position to management because, as Alan and Al Benke looked at the position, it is supervisory in nature. This person supervises the drivers, directs them, will evaluate them, but also I think the biggest change is that we really need somebody who can use technology to manage our parts and supply inventory and get things in the hands of the people who need them quickly.
And why is it being updated right now?
The position was through a retirement. The same person had been in that position for 28 years. And we're looking again to, as far as a parts inventory and ordering parts, when we have our tradespeople out in the buildings and there's projects to do, to get the parts out there, because we're finding that someone having to take the time to go, to go get the parts, and that's not a very efficient, use of our labor force. So this person will be doing somewhat the same position. It's just that we're going to modernize it and use the, and to be able to get the equipment not only for the tradespeople but also for the custodians in the buildings and the building engineers. So they're not, don't have the parts. We're going to have the parts right there, or we're going to, this person will order the parts as they need them when something breaks and get those parts out there without having other people who should be doing the work are out there
Trying to find the parts
or ordering the parts. And then we're going to try to set up a standard list of parts so we know that at Preble High School they have this boiler, they have this machine, so we know when they have a problem. So he doesn't have to go out to the building and look at it to make sure it's the right bolt. We'll have all that information in one central spot, and it will become much more efficient than it is today.
Would this person be responsible for finding vendors to supply parts?
Correct.
So my next question is sort of a broader question. Do we have a policy regarding hiring certified minority-owned businesses to supply some of our parts and materials? So there's different categories. There's minority-owned, veteran-owned, disabled person-owned, and woman-owned business. So do we have any policies regarding that? I don't know if it's this position that would be working with that, or if it's, Mike or Al. I don't know if I've asked that
and again,
question
it would be
before.
no different for our purchasing already, so
Okay.
that's something I would have to look at.
I don't know that, I don't know that I've read it in a policy, and I don't think we ask it when we go out for bid either. Because, these are businesses that are certified by the state as minority owned and can do business with governmental entities like us. So.
Put an answer in the update.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yes.
Depending where things are at and realizing that we're not voting until next week and different things could happen, this would fall into my category of new management positions, where I've made it clear I'm going to be voting no until staff either has been given a raise or a reasonable proposal of a raise has been given to staff to examine. That being said, we're not voting till next week, so just so there's no surprise on that.
That's a good point. Alan, if I may ask, and that's a question I meant to ask, with the person that was retiring, that was not a salaried position, that was an hourly position?
Correct.
And did that position often have a lot of overtime?
That position worked more than 8-9 hours every day.
So there was overtime there?
Correct.
Continually. So,
well, part of the issue is we have trucks that are leaving at 5 o'clock in the morning, so that's part of the other problem, trying to cover an entire day, because trucks are also going out pretty much all during the day, and sometimes later in the afternoon. So this person will probably be doing the early part and doing the materials, and purchasing will do the, we'll just make it all work out.
And I think when we looked at this and discussed it, we looked at the salary and it was 5,000 difference. It wasn't a huge amount of money.
The salary for that position was, $57,000.
57,000. So,
Which did not include the overtime.
Which did not include the overtime. And I think the other piece that's out there when Alan speaks to efficiencies, there's overtime, or at least people engaged in loss of time out looking for parts. You start looking at all of that, and people driving, and then there's gas, and then there's this, and then there's that. So I don't know that we have a real good handle on how much additional money it costs to not have this position. But it's certainly, when you start to look at how many trucks are out, how many different opportunities for efficiencies, even in repair. That's the piece too, to have an inventory of what's in every building and know if something goes down, what parts are needed is really, I think, it's a very important thing.
I think it will be savings if it is.
I think so too. Might be hard to capture the total.
Point of clarification, I'm not sure whether it's always that we'll have the inventory, but from your comments, we'll know
what
parts need to get on time delivery.
Yes.
Okay, anything else for that? Thank you. The next recommendation is that the administrative intern teacher on special assignment job description as presented be approved. Should I talk about that a little bit, Ms. Marsh?
Yes, this is a new position. It's a position that Michelle described to us because she had these positions at Anoka Hennepin. And right now it comes to you because we have an opening at Sullivan Elementary because of a resignation. And the person in the position was a dean. And what we'd like to propose is not to hire a dean, but to hire an administrative intern who's a teacher on special assignment and give them the opportunity to get experience at an administrative level. The idea is this is a career ladder type of position, so somebody would come in, they'd either be in their master's program leading towards their administrative license, or they would have completed it and be getting experience with their position to take on an administrative role. It could be an associate principal or a principal position. The job description is different in 2 ways, or 3 ways, I think I pointed them out. One is that this is going to be a limited position. It will not go on forever. The person could be in the position 1 year, maybe 2 years, and then either they go back to the classroom or they would advance to an administrative level position. It also supervises paraprofessionals, clericals, monitors, or supervisors, and that is something that that the dean did not have formal authority to supervise. And also the position will be much more involved in administrative work and getting involved in a variety of things within the building. The dean position often became one that was tied to disciplining students, and this is not the intent here. It's to get this person involved so you can really start to see if they're going to be the administrator that you'd want to promote. So Terry Willems worked on this job description with us, Randy, and then Mike Fraley, who has the position open, also gave input.
So Jean, just to be clear, we do not have a similar position elsewhere in the district?
No, we don't. It's brand new.
I personally think this is one of those things like, oh my gosh, I could have had a V8, why didn't I think of it sooner? I'm trying to be a little bit more proactive in grooming future administrators. And again,
it makes a lot of sense.
It's something, you sort of think it's sort of being done out there, but this is formalizing
This
a little bit more.
formalizes it, yeah, like that.
Yes.
I think the other piece that it does is we look to educator effectiveness. This will be a really important role to provide additional supervision of folks in the building and create that opportunity for oversight so that a principal is freed up, or assistant principals, to do the classroom evaluations, and then the non-certified staff receive support in partnering with the intern piece. And the other thing that we did find, I think, as we look to principal effectiveness, this is the way to grow your administrators and scale up what their opportunities are, so that at the end of the day you have a candidate who you don't guess what they can do. I mean, I think that's what we have found in some cases. We found people who are leaders in certain areas and promoted them from the classroom, but they may or may not be the best fit. And so we want to provide them with even more background and support. So when they do walk into an administrative role, they have the skills and we know what they can do.
It's a nice way to test the administrative waters. See if that is something you really want to do.
Well, that's
You'd rather
the
be
other
back in the
piece too,
classroom.
and that happens as well.
Well, the district sort of had that option informally, for what it's worth, for several years, where there's understanding that, let's say I was a teacher, I went to administrative role. If I didn't like it, or it wasn't a fit for me on either end, I could go back to the classroom. This again formalizes it a little bit more.
So, explain to me why removing a discipline function and inserting a supervisory function over the support staff. Explain to me why, and I'm asking a question, not making a judgment. Explain to me why that's best for the building.
They weren't disciplining staff. I mean,
No, they were disciplining students,
discipline.
right, yes, that's.
But they will still discipline students.
They would still discipline students,
But it won't
okay.
be sometimes all the bus referrals, all this, all that, and pretty soon this person never really gets an opportunity to even see what the building's doing. And if we're going to shift buildings into a focus around teaching and learning, we need to have that balance. So this will provide that individual the opportunity to have that balance of teaching and learning and evaluation, and I think become a more integral part of the administrative team to help move the building forward.
Since this is a new type of position, what do you plan on providing to us in terms of how well it's going, whether or not this is effective?
I think the selection of the person will need to be as rigorous as any when we select an administrator. So at least 2 rounds of interviewing for the candidates. I think the proof will actually be in whether or not this person succeeds moves to an administrative role. Could be here, could be in another district, but the intention would be within our district within a year or 2 years, and then is successful. That it really is a administrative career path for an aspiring educator. However, I would say that if the person chooses to go back to the classroom, that doesn't mean it wasn't successful.
Right.
You know, because that can happen. And so we are holding the person's position of record for the first year. We're not promising a second year, because I think after the first year, the second year might be another year in the same building, or we may move the person to get a broader experience in another building. But after that first year, we aren't going to guarantee that their position of record will be held. That's a long time to have a LTE in the position.
The other thing I have a question about is the position purpose. I don't know if I'm reading it correctly, but when I read it, I was confused as to who was getting the administrative path for the aspiring educator. So was that clear to everybody else, that it was for the person who was doing the job, not the person to provide it to other people? So does anybody else see that? It seems like if he's to provide the applicant or the employer, something like that, with some extra word that makes it clear that it's the person who's doing the job that is provided with the career path, not that the person who is in the job is providing it to other people.
No, I see what you're saying. I get
So it's to provide an educator an administrative career path.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Any other questions? Yes.
Are you foreseeing, I don't know how many dean positions we have right now, 6 or
6 or 7,
something like that. Do you foresee transitioning all of our dean positions to this at some point, or?
We haven't talked about how we're going to do that. I don't think we would automatically transition all the deans to this position. It comes to you because we happen to have that position open, and because it's something. Yes, we haven't decided.
Okay, my question more was in, if you have another dean that leaves or goes back to the classroom, can you see putting another position like this into there?
I think we'd talk with, depending where it was, Mark, Terry, Kim, Michelle, we would talk and see if this made sense for that position. I think you also have to have a principal who's willing to do this, because there's more of a mentorship going on here. And Mike is willing to take this on and be the first person to have an intern with him.
Okay with that? We'll move that on to the board. And consent items, any question about that? Send that out. Thank you.
All right, then I will read, we have a closed session. Is there any other matters allowed by law?
Oh, I have one thing.
Okay.
I just wanted to announce that we have, there's a fundraising event planned for October 11th from 7 to 10 p.m. at Kaleidoscope, which is an establishment on Broadway, and all proceeds donated will be given to the McKinney-Vento Homeless Project. There will be a duo. I can't vouch for the musicians, I don't know them, but I can vouch for Kathy's food.
I know who the musicians are. Yes.
Stan and Marty, acoustic
Stan
duo.
Kokas. Our Stan
Oh, your
Kokas
Stan,
and
our
his wife.
Stan.
Yes, and his wife Marty.
Okay.
That's all.
Stephen Edie.
All right, thanks, Mary. A special board meeting, closed session has been scheduled for Monday, September 9th, 2013, immediately following the adjournment of the work session meetings at the district office building, room 337, pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.851G. Conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, to wit, potential litigation matter. The meeting will begin in open session to consider the appropriate motion for a closed session so provided by law.
So move.
Second.
Sandy?
Aye. It's the shortest one you ever read.
Becca?
It is.
Aye.
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 Jeffries?
Jeffries, say aye.
Aye, aye.
Aye.
Brenda, you ready to be on the floor?
Carried 7-0. We'll meet across the street. Across the street. Across the hall. See?
What's your tomorrow?
For more information or to obtain copies of this program, contact CISA 7 Interactive Learning Services at 920-465-5218.